Hi everyone, welcome to Using Formulas. So far we have covered what are equations, how to substitute into equations, how to solve equations. So if you are not confident on some of those, you should have a look at some of the previous videos, but let's get right into using formulas. So first of all, we're going to start off with a warm-up, and this involves substituting. So here is an equation or a formula, and we're asked to find what k is, and in a specific situation really, where u equals 3 and j equals 7. So have a go at this yourself, just pause the video. Okay, let's have a go at this. So k equals 3. Now, what are we doing? We're just rewriting this equation. And every time we get up to something we need to substitute, we stop and substitute it. So we'll replace the j with -7. And we're writing times -7 because 3j means 3 times j. Plus, and u is 3. So there we go. 3 times 7 is 21. If it's negative, if there's a negative in there, the whole thing becomes negative. So it's -21 plus 3. And if you look on a number line, and here's 0, and here is -21, if you're adding 3, you're going to the right. So that'll be 20, 19, -20, -19, -18. All right, easy, hopefully. Okay, so here are some words that you'll need to know. These all mean fairly similar things. So an equation is the one that you all know. So if there's an expression and there's an equal sign in there as well, and a left-hand side and a right-hand side, like here's my example. D equals 344 times T. That's an equation. Okay. In a relationship, let's just quickly talk about the example for a second. D equals 344t, where d is the distance lightning is from you, and t is the number of seconds between the flash that you see and the sound of thunder. So if you see lightning, often you'll hear the thunder, which is connected to the lightning, or the thunder that caused the lightning, a second later or a few seconds later. And the number of seconds, well, maybe you'll know, can help you to work out how far away the lightning is. So the actual distance is 344 times the number of seconds. Okay, so a relationship is an equation. Why is it called a relationship? Well, it's a connection between these two, D and T. They're related or connected. If T changes, if the amount of time becomes bigger, you know that the distance is bigger. So if one of these changes, the other one has to change as well. That's what happens in a relationship. You're connected to each other. All right, so a rule is another word for the equation. And D and T obey the rule. So, for example, if T equals 1, according to the rule, D has to be 344 times 1, which is 344. D can't be anything else. D is not allowed to be anything else, so it has to obey the rule. Okay. Formula is something that you use. It's an equation that you use, but you might use it a lot. So, for example, we're going to look at the next slide. Speed equals distance over time. That's an equation. It's a formula, and people use it a lot. And actually, this is just another version of speed equals distance over time formula. Okay. Now, another thing you need to know is the difference between variables and unknowns. We've talked about this before, but We need to talk about this again because it's very relevant to what we're doing. So I'm going to ask you a question that makes no sense. A car is driving down the road. How fast is it going? Now, hopefully you're thinking, I need to know some more information first. So it could be going at any speed, I don't know. And the reason is because there's 3 variables here. There's one variable here, another variable here, and another variable here. S, D, and T. And if there's 3 variables in an equation, you change one and the others change. But you can't work out, if somebody says, work out what S is, you can't, because you don't know what D is and what T is. If you knew what they were, you could work it out. But if there's 3 variables in the equation, you can't work it out. Here's a question that still makes no sense. A car drives for a distance of 500 meters. How fast is it going? So this is 500, D is 500. And you're asking, what's S? The reason it still doesn't make sense is because I still don't know what T is. So that means I can't work it out. If I knew what T is, I would be able to work it out. And finally, a car drives for a distance of 500 meters in 20 seconds. We can work this out because this is 500, this is 20, and suddenly we can write an equation with an unknown. So S equals, instead of writing D, we'll write 500. Instead of writing T, we'll write 20. And now this is an unknown now, instead of a variable. Because it's the only one in the equation that we don't know. If I change this to T, suddenly S and T are both called variables because they can change depending on what the other one is. So S will be different depending on what T is. But if I make this 20, there's only one number that S can be. That's why it's called an unknown now. So let's work it out. Let's solve the equation. 500 divided by 20 is like 50 divided by 2, which is 25. So the only number that S can be is 25. Okay, so that was our unknown, and now we've found it out. So hopefully you now know the difference between variables and unknown. And you need to know that if I have an equation like this, x equals y plus 5, there are 2 variables here, and you can't work out what x is because it depends on what y is. But if I replace y with 10, now suddenly the x is not a variable, it's an unknown, and you can work out what it is. That's important. Now this is pretty tricky stuff. This is going to be relevant for you for a long time, and you'll have a lot of time to work on this. If you're in, I'm aiming this at grade 7. If you're in grade 7, you've got a lot of time to get these straight. But if you understand them now, your life will be a lot simpler going forward in terms of maths. Okay, so let's solve a worded problem with a formula. So here's steps for solving worded problems with formulas. Number 1 is you make this thing called a have/need table. So what that is you write the word have, oops, you write the word need, you make a little table, and you write the information that you have, and you have to write a variable for each piece of information. So the question says the area is 150 centimeters, so let's say A equals 150. That's information that we already know. And also we've got this 10 centimeters. What is that? Hopefully you remember this is the height of the triangle. So let's call that H, and we'll say that's 10. Now, okay, what do we need? We need the base of the triangle, which is here. Let's call that B, and we'll write B. And everything in the need column is you have a question mark here because you don't know what it is yet. And that helps you, hopefully, to go into step number 2, find a formula that will result in only one unknown. So we need to find a formula with an A in it. It can have an A, it can have a H and a B. It needs to have a B in it. And it can have these two. It might not have both of these, but if it has these two, that'll be fine because we know what they are. But if the formula has an X in it, we'll be in trouble because we don't have any X's here. Alright, so luckily the formula for the area of a triangle is A equals a half times B times H. And let's just see if it will result in only one unknown. So we've got 3 variables, A, B, and H. We need to know 2 of them. So do we know 2 of them? So then we can find the other. So we know A, that's good. And we know H, that's good. So we've only got one thing that we don't know, which is great. That means we'll be able to solve it. We'll be able to work it out, what B is. Okay, now step 3, substitute numbers into the formula. Let's do that. So we've got 150 equals a half times B we don't know, so we'll just keep it as B. And H equals 10, so we'll write that. Okay, now number 4, rearrange the equation if necessary. So I made sure that we would have to rearrange this equation. Now first of all, let's just clean this up a little bit. So half times B times 10, we can simplify this by multiplying a half and 10. So what's a half of 10? That's 5. So then we've got 150 equals 5 times B. And why don't we write that the other way around? Why don't we write 5B equals 150? Because then it just looks a bit nicer. Okay, now we need to get rid of this 5, so how do we do that? This is 5 times B, so you do the opposite, which is dividing. And so these will cancel out, and you'll have B equals 150 over 5 is 30. And there we go.